Welcome to Champion Your Culture, the podcast, a weekly live show where we explore the power of culture and leadership in business. I'm Ryan McCarty.
And I'm George Rogers, and we go live every week to learn from each other and hear from other experts about how to effectively champion our team members and ourselves. So join us live every Wednesday on our social networks or subscribe. You can listen to Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Now, let's champion your culture.
What's up, everybody? We're here with Champion Your Culture, the podcast. We are back for another Wednesday. It's hump day, George. Good to see you, brother. I didn't know if you were going to jump on or not, homie.
You know, I'm over here. I got priorities. You know this is.
Okay. So the show's not a priority. What's your priority? Tell me about it.
Well, I was trying to get everything situated on my end, and then I'm over here, looking, seeing if we're live yet, make sure everything's, right technical wise. I look up and I'm not even there. I hear your voice. And it's always good to hear your voice. It's always good to hear your voice every Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
To be here with you, my friend. It's a great pleasure and an honor. We want to welcome everybody today to Champion Your Culture, sponsored by Culture of Good. As always, we appreciate them and their support behind everything that we do each and every Wednesday. We do what we do best. Ryan, tell a little bit for our audience and those who may be listening for the first time, a little bit about Culture of Good. I know we got some exciting things coming up we're going to be talking about as well towards the end, but what is Culture of Good for those who don't know?
If you have ever asked the question, how do we get our leaders to take ownership and be effective, especially those middle managers and those frontline leaders, Culture Good develops leaders and culture. Really, if you want a leadership culture that engages employees, customers, and community, we provide solutions, everything from workshops to ongoing development programs, coaching those leaders. It's all based on a process of a culture of good that engages and motivates people intrinsically rather than using a carrot or a stick. We ask people to bring their soul to work every day. So Culture of Good really makes a more effective leadership culture. We say it like this: a leader leads everyone. A leadership culture is where everyone leads. And we don't want it just a leader in a business. We want a leadership culture. If you want a leadership culture, reach out to us at Culture of Good. Is that good, George?
Hey, that was great, man. I couldn't have done it better myself. So I'm glad that I have you with me.
Sounded like a commercial, man.
Hey, it was a good one. It was a good one. Paid sponsor ad. So
yeah. I'm real excited, George, because we're going to welcome a guest into the studio today. Are you ready for this? We're going to jump right into it.
I'm ready. I don't know if he's ready. I don't know if the audience is ready, but I'm ready.
Oh, I know he's ready. I know he's ready. I talked to him this morning. He'd been ready for many years. So I'm going to introduce him. This is going to be Dr. Rousawn Dozier. He is, this is what he likes to say: your current situation does not have to be your final destination. I love that. That's a quote by him. He lives by that, from experience in poverty and living in government-assisted housing during his youth to earning a doctorate of organizational leadership and traveling the country as a keynote speaker. Rousawn believes wholeheartedly in the power of perseverance and perspective. I love that. Get ready to turn your mindset into an asset. Welcome, Dr. Rousawn Dozier. It's good to have you on. Oh, he's swinging already. I see it right.
What's up, fellas? How we doing?
Good to have you on,
excited,
brother.
Guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you've been into, a little of your journey and how you got to here.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things. Just like, man, how did I get here, right? And in life, sometimes it's day by day, and I believe, as you mentioned, in the power of perspective. And so a little bit about me: I am from the great state of West Virginia, born and raised. On the playground is where I spent. No, I didn't
most
spend
of my days.
You
fit right in. You fit right in the show. That's what we end up doing. Like every other sentence ends in a rap.
That's the only way. And so I would say I graduated high school, but they almost kicked me out. Like, yo, get this dude out of here. Left high school with a 1.9 cumulative GPA. So that's when my freshman year and my senior year had a 1.9 cumulative GPA. And it was one of those moments, man, those make or break moments, those rock bottom moments that you can allow to happen for you, not to you. And I chose to change my life on a day where my mom said, baby, like, you're the only person standing in your way. So I decided I was going to be more. I wanted more for myself. And I started demanding more for myself than I did other people. And so I went to Marshall University, got a degree there, ended up getting a business degree, a master's in business administration. From there, went into some corporate stuff, transitioned out of working in marketing for 5 years for an agricultural lender, started working on the PhD, did some ministry for a while. And I always felt like I was supposed to be speaking. Like, I would go to events and conferences when I was in corporate America, and I would lean into the keynote. I'm like, man, I think I can do that. Yeah. And so I started doing it on the side, and I just determined, like, hey, this is for me. So I stepped out a couple of years ago and have been all in on developing leaders, helping folks grow their mindsets, and, you know, doing things like that. I end up meeting incredible folks like you, Ryan, and then I get invited to platforms like this. So tip of the cap to you guys.
Yeah. I love that. So, I love the idea of organizational leadership and getting a doctorate in that. I'm just really interested in what are the pieces of that really stand out to you. Like, what does that mean, having a doctorate in organizational leadership? We've been in leadership, George and I, for a real long time. We don't have doctorates, right? So, like, what does that mean? Like, what is that?
You know, you all do have doctors, and I tell folks this all the time. Like, the school of hard knocks trumps any school that you can go to. Like, actually learning the lessons of leadership while leading while bleeding, leading while struggling, all of that. And so this idea of organizational leadership is actually very much intertwined with what you are doing. It's like creating a culture of leadership, right? Not just leading people, but allowing folks to be leaders. And so organizational leadership, a lot of my studies were on how can, as an individual, I influence or persuade people through different tools and formulas and things like that. But to do that in a way where we have the organization in mind, right? And so that can be in a business, that can be in an institution, or even in your personal life. A lot of the tools that I learned are very much applicable. So yeah, the fancy little degree is cute, but you guys actually being in the field and leading, that's where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's some of the things that you know, it's kind of on your heart? We're obviously coming into this month and been talking and discussing all things mental health and awareness. And what's crazy about the three of us, and Ryan and I have known each other, you know, for 30 years or so. But hearing your story and being able to talk to you over the last couple of days, getting to know you even more. The more we talk, there's like, man, and you're talking about school, and I'm thinking, man, that was me too. I don't even know where my certificate is. I knew that I walked the stage and they handed me something. I don't know what that something was. I gave it to my mama. My mom looked at it and she left town. She moved to Wisconsin like 24 hours after I walked the stage. And so I'm wondering, like, man, you got so many things that are really relatable to the story that Ryan and I both have.
Yeah.
What were some of those moving things that really propelled you? You talked about your relationship with your mom. You talked about really making a change and having that significant, paradigm shift within your life to where you wanted to do more and become more for yourself. What were some of those other things that really kind of propelled you to be who you are today as a successful Black man in this world?
Man, good question, George. For me, it was ownership. Like, up until that moment that I made the decision that, you know, I'm going to change my life for me. I was a person that was a victim of my situation and circumstances. Like, life was happening to me and not for me. And I made excuses every day. I made excuses for why I was tricking off time. I made excuses for why I wasn't doing my best in school. I made excuses on why I wasn't a man of integrity. And so the moment I decided to take ownership, right? Ownership being like, yo, everything in my life right now may not be my fault, but because it's my life, it's my responsibility.
It may not be my fault, but it's my life. I absolutely love that. Like I can imagine everybody that's listening right now is writing notes, yo. That's good.
I wish I would have had that note when I was a kid, but I realized that if I take responsibility for this, then I can't blame anybody except for me. Right. And then when it's time to give credit, I can take credit now because I'm the one that actually did the work. So that paradigm shift for me was looking at my dying mother who just wanted me to graduate high school. And I didn't have anything for her other than disappointment and failure. And so I just took ownership from that moment, man.
I feel that. I feel that. We talked a lot about our own experiences as George was talking. It reminded me like the three of us uh right away resonated, like our stories resonated, but also there was bonding. And I think I hear about trauma bonding, what I mean, like where you find other people that have trauma, and like immediately it's like you when you meet, it's almost like you got trauma, I got trauma, we know how, what I'm saying, we've been through it together, in a sense. And I think like as we've been talking about this month, it's been really good. And George, I think you can speak to this too. And Deshaun, or Rashawn rather, the idea of overcoming and not just undergoing. So we undergo all the time, but how do we overcome as we undergo? Because like, a lot of people are listening know my story with losing my mom at 6 and my dad on heroin. And, we all have stories, right? We all have stories. We all have trauma. Have you ever done the ACE study or the ACE test? The ACE test shows how much on a rate of childhood trauma that you experienced, and based on that, the impacts of that. And I'm way high on that. I'm like an ace on the ace. It's like they call it ace and I'm ace. So yeah, it's just a matter of being able to look at life and understand that we carry that trauma through our life. As we've been going through this month, George spoke to it, you've been speaking to it. I thought this would be a good conversation just to have, where we just open up and be honest about what it took and what it takes to face great adversity in life, great trial, great mountains that stand in our way. And how do we get not past it? How do we get through it? Right? Not just like how do we get past our past, but how do we overcome, and how do we thrive? I love that idea of thriving in the midst. And thriving looks different. There's been seasons in my life where thriving just meant that I reached out for help. Other seasons, thriving meant I landed a massive deal. You know what I mean? Like in the midst of adversity. It just really depends on the amount of adversity someone's facing. And how do we thrive? How do you guys feel about thriving in the midst of adversity? And you're on mute, Rashawn. George, you can speak up too whenever you want that.
I'll let Dr. Rousawn go first with
right.
this thought. I know he had something. He was shaking his head.
Like that right there, man, is just I felt that in my spirit. Like you
Yeah.
said, not to just overcome, but to undergo.
Or not to
That
undergo life, but to overcome in the
yeah,
midst of
overcome.
undergo. Yeah. Yeah.
And so like I think the first thing is recognizing that we have trauma. Like
Yeah.
recognizing it, like not trying to outrun the problem. What it's been said that conflict avoided is conflict multiplied. And in my life, I had this multiplication of problems that was a byproduct of the trauma that I was trying to avoid.
Mm.
And the type my trauma response is dangerous, and I'd imagine you guys probably can identify. It's when you're success driven, that's actually celebrated. And so that's a
Yeah.
trauma
Yeah.
response.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, you built another six-figure business. You did this. Go, Rashawn. But meanwhile, I'm absolutely broken because I'm trying
Mm.
to outrun the poverty. I'm trying to outrun the fatherlessness. I'm trying to outrun the addiction that I saw. I'm trying to outrun me being born with an addiction to crack cocaine. I'm trying to outrun these things, and I'm doing it in a way where society celebrates it. But it wasn't until I realized, I looked at my kids and I said, if I'm really going to be the best dad and best husband I can be, I have to deal with me. I have to sit in
I
it a
have
little.
to deal with me. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to deal with me. And so that was my first step to beginning the process and journey of being whole, was to sit with myself, not to distract me from myself, but to sit with myself. That was big for me.
Oh, I love that. One of the coolest quotes of that I've heard. Great leadership mind, Kendrick Lamar. not only a gifted artist, but he said I grieve different in one of his lines. And I was like, God, that right there, because I never felt it personally. We're taught how to grieve by others or not taught how to grieve at all. But to know yourself so well that you know how you grieve and you partner with that grief, because sometimes we see other people dealing with their grief in different ways, and you talked about running from these things, right? And not only do we have to run from something, but we have to know what we're running toward.
That's good.
Like if you don't have a run toward, you're running aimlessly. You can still be running, but you're running constantly. Your body's moving. I've dealt with hypertension. I've dealt with ADHD. The pain that I had as a child, I've never even shared this with anybody. No shame at all. I wet the bed till I was 11 years old, man. I was almost 12 before I stopped wetting the bed. I never had the opportunity to, like, as a kid, there's no parents were like, you know what, you probably need to go see a therapist. Parents nowadays are like, I told my girls, if you live with us for 18 years, one of the rewards you get at the end, our payback is we're going to pay for your therapy, because it's like, we have to position ourselves in a place where we're leading us well, but we have to have the tools to do so. I didn't know how to grieve. I didn't know how to deal with all. I turned to other things to try to cope, but I didn't have any coping tools. I wasn't taught any of that, and so you're managing. It looks like you're effing everything up along the way, but what you're doing is you're coping. You're coping with the pain. You're coping with the stress. You're coping with that internalized battle and that wage of war on the inside of you. And I think all of that is a constant fighting on the inside, and that fight, flight response, and all of that, or you freeze, and you've got all that on the inside of you, biologically, emotionally, mentally. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, but it impacts us physically. It impacts us spiritually. It impacts us relationally, financially. It has a tremendous impact on our lives. And until we start to lead ourselves and have some self-awareness in it, and being willing to say, how do I thrive today?
Yeah, I think, Ryan, when you talk about the grieving part of it and running aimlessly, that's not something that we are taught, especially as, think, in our childhood, and I think we've all heard this, is that suck it up, men don't cry, right? We've heard this as a child. And so we lived that lifestyle. And I that was one area of my life that I didn't know how to grieve. Like, what is grief? Because we were always taught, even through death, like, we lost somebody, you have that moment, you move on. But in the back of your mind, as a man, and then even as a pastor, right? I grew up as I became a pastor for 14 plus years, and I did funeral after funeral, from children to a grandma, grandpa. I've seen, unfortunate deaths. I've seen untimely deaths. I've experienced them personally, right? But going through those phases, you become the title and not the person that you're supposed to be. And so sometimes, even in leadership, and we talk about this related back to the workplace, as we got many people that are in the business world, whether they're entrepreneurs, the CEOs, or your HR area, where we have these titles, and the titles become who we are and versus what we do. And we lose ourselves in those titles, and we don't take the time to really sit aside to be able to truly grieve and really understand what that is. When you say running aimlessly, we just run. We run away from the problems. We don't get through them. We were taught to get over it, like, get over it. Versus, hey, I'm gonna get through this situation, and this is how I'm gonna get through this. I don't know where I'm gonna go, but there has to be a start. Understanding where the start, Ryan, I think is, and Dr. Rousawn, I think those are the things that people may not understand, is like, we're 30, 40 years old in age before we're realizing how to, I at least for myself, I'm in my 30s before I realize what it truly means to grieve. And it's okay to not be okay. Like, it's okay to grieve. And even now, like, years later, my sister, passed away 2016. I'm still in the grieving process and understanding, because I woke up Christmas morning with a 2-year-old kid that she left for us to raise. And so every day I'm grieving, looking at, today he's his final day of second grade. And I'm thinking she should have been here. She shouldn't have passed away at 25. That grieving is not necessarily a season of your life. It becomes your life. It's something that you heal through, and you continue to heal through throughout the process. I got
forever.
Scars. Yes, it's those scars we have. I got a scar on my neck, and every time somebody new sees me, they want to know where it came from. Right? I'm healed. It's completely healed. There's no pain. But I'm reminded of that scar, and that brings back memories.
Yeah, that's powerful. I love that idea of we continue to heal.
Yeah.
Like the three of us are in a healing process. As we talk right now, we are healing.
Yeah.
And I love that idea because, as we think about other people that are hurting, we want to fix that for them. When we love someone really deep and they hurt, the first thing we want to do is fix it. But people aren't fixed, they're healed.
Yeah.
And if we love ourselves really well, we can't fix us. We can't we can't run from it and it's over, or we can't avoid it and it doesn't exist anymore. We have to heal. The only way to heal is to grieve. The only way to heal is to cry. You know that your tears, actually contain trauma and the toxins from trauma and stuff. There's toxins inside of your tears. It releases toxins of stress out of your body when you cry. Men don't cry. It ain't there's a reason why we need that release, right? We hold all of it in. I'm strong enough. We're like a pressure cooker, and we forget to let off that pressure, and then we blow the lid, right? We don't have the ability to deal with another thing, right? And little things set us off, even though we feel like we've overcome in life. And the reason why is because it's another straw that breaks a camel's back, right? It's like one more thing because we've not dealt with all this other stuff.
That's so good, man. It's like you're not responding to a situation, you're responding from a situation. And if I've not grown, now I'm responding from trauma, and I'm trying to figure out, why am I so angry? Why am I this? I'm responding from that. And so, as George said, it's a continuous process of growth. And I think that's what we need to understand and embrace, is that healing is a journey. It's not necessarily, it's not an act. It's a continuous process of growth and healing. I really like that. That even shifted my perspective.
Yeah, I love that. So we're going to take a quick segment break for a second, and then we're going to get back to more practical ways, because to your point, Rousawn, we're talking about the step-by-step. How have you, and George, I'd love for you to hear from you as well, and I'll share a little bit. How have you healed? Let's get real about that, all right? So for the break today, and we'll be back here in just a moment, we're going to have the craziest shit, as we've done every week in HR. All right. Sorry, Rousawn. This is like a deep conversation, and now there's fart noises, but that's how we roll. So for all my HR people out there, I really love y'all, man. This is an HR person, craziest shit in HR. It was a day like any other. Got called in the afternoon to address a snake issue on the back patio. A giant Burmese python, I have no idea where this company is, had gotten onto the area where the employees would break. So they had to send out a note to everyone to ensure that they did not use the break area and to get break somewhere else. And then the second issue was a bear issue, where there was a black bear that decided to climb up in the tree in the parking lot to make his home. Obviously, it was a safety issue. They called Fish and Wildlife Control. All of that didn't happen. We sent out a memo to the whole office. Listen, I'm just saying, if there's a bear in a tree in a parking lot, I'm taking off work, y'all. I ain't working in that position. So, so that's one of them. Second one here, craziest shit in HR. This is by an HR professional, Frank Evans. I once had an employee insist her pregnancy was work comp eligible since she got pregnant on the premises. I love y'all HR people. Y'all deal with a whole lot of stuff. All right. Last one. Christine Stevens, 2, I've seen happen. Telling an employee, yes, you must wear underwear, and no, you cannot share and stone the courtroom. And telling an employee that no, you cannot purposefully fart right before you leave the elevator and leave the rest of the passengers to suffer your admissions. And that, my friends, is crazy as shit in HR. What do y'all think about that, yo? That's some crazy shit. I know I just kind of read through it, but I'm like, snakes, bear. We went from snakes, bears
To no underwears.
to no underwears.
Come on. Starting in elevators, like, bro, I was in marketing. I couldn't be in HR. I don't have the grace. My HR brothers and sisters, tip of the cap to
I
you
know.
all.
I just talked to a SHRM group in Southern Indiana. I was like, y'all, man, I love y'all. I love y'all. I love y'all. Because I know they call it human resources to trick people that it's like rehumanizing the business. And if you love people, you'll want to get into HR. And then all my HR professionals like, I loved people, past tense, you know. I did love people. Now I'm starting to love them less, you know. And so we always want to send some love out to all of our people. I do want to mention that this is brought to you by Culture of Good. And here's a little bit about Culture Good.
What if you can do more with your leadership team? What if you can empower them to make a bigger impact faster? As leaders, we know that we have to be good at a lot of things. But what if we can do less and let our teams do more?
That's exactly where Culture of Good comes in. We offer solutions for every step of the culture and leadership development process, from strategy and workshops to buy-in processes, so that you can empower your employees to fulfill their purpose and make an impact on your company. We believe in empowering people, and that's why we're offering 10% off our Culture Champion certification for any team who mentions Champion Your Culture when they reach out to us on cultureofgood.com. Reach out to us today. Yeah, we've got that coming up. So, George, July 11th and 12th, we've got Culture Good training. We're training all culture champions how to lead your team, yourself, the organization toward building a culture of good in your business. And we're back with Rousawn. It's good stuff, man. I'm loving this conversation. I love just being honest and open and transparent. I love the term vulnerable, because leaders that are vulnerable, when they emulate that vulnerability and people feel it and sense it, it allows for others to be open and honest about what they're dealing with as well. I think that authenticity is what people are really longing for, you know, when it comes to leadership. Like we can manage stuff, but when it really comes down to leadership, leading ourselves, our team, and our organization, we've got to be able, as we talked about before, not just manage our life, but lead it. How have you guys, and I'll share as well, ways that we can just have some convo around how we've healed, you know, what that process has looked like. We've shared that we didn't do it well. We waited till we were like in our 30s and 40s, although I think you know, as males, I think our brains develop a little later than you know, so there's some of that too. But how have you guys healed? You know, like what does a healing process look like for you in a practical way? You know,
Man, I know for me, man, it's intentional, not accidental, right? Like you don't wake up in the morning accidentally successful. You don't accidentally build a 7-figure business. You don't accidentally build a healthy family, right? It's intentional. And so for me, I was on a flight to Miami with my family, and I fly all the time, and we rarely fly as a family, you know, together, maybe 2-3 times a year.
yeah,
But this flight, I happened to look over, and the flight attendant was saying, you know, in case of an emergency landing, be sure to place the oxygen mask on yourself first. And I'm looking at
right,
my son, my daughters, and my wife. I'm like, there's no way in hell that I would be able to put the oxygen mask on myself with them dying because they can't breathe. But then I realized in that moment, it was a perspective shift. If I don't put that mask on and I black out, who's going to take care of my family?
yeah,
Who's going to take care of, you know, and the same is true in life, right? Like in business. who's going to take care of your teams? Who's going to lead? Like, you have to be intentional about putting the oxygen mask on yourself first. So for me, it looked like sitting down for a season.
Sitting down. Okay.
Yeah, sitting down for a season. And that's opposite of who I am. I'm on the go, but I knew that I was running. So heavy on the therapy, saying no often to business opportunities, because I realized, again, it wasn't about me getting ahead professionally if I was dying personally and everybody connected to me. So I started the healing journey. We now understand that it's a continuous process by sitting down for a season and putting the oxygen mask on myself so that, to your point, Ryan, I could lead myself better so that I could lead others better. I had to sit down.
I love that. I mean, that's huge. So in the midst of sitting down, you mentioned therapy. Did you know, what does that process look like? I know there's a lot of people that are out there that may not even realize, you know, we've talked about the last few weeks, like a lot of companies have EAP programs and provide some form of therapy. Not everybody has access, you know, so if you don't have access, that creates even additional challenges. And but for those that are listening, and I would imagine a lot of our audience are working at places that do provide, you know, some amount of sessions with a counselor or therapist, you know. What did that process look like for you? And did you have therapy prior to that?
Yeah. No. So I had a
Okay.
kind of a negative connotation with therapy, like coming up.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was, don't be
Me
telling
too.
people our business. Why are you going to tell people our business? Da
Or
da da.
crazy people
That
get
that was
therapy.
my
You know
life.
what I'm saying? Like, I don't need therapy. That's for
Right.
crazy people. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Right. And so it was just like this idea, like, why would I wait for my house to catch on fire for me to go buy a fire extinguisher? Right. Like, it didn't make sense. And so I realized, like, I have to go get the help. My family was like, oh, don't talk to people. Be careful what you say. But I was like, that's the point. You mentioned earlier, I haven't said anything. I'm holding it. That trauma is stored in me. And my situation's not changing. Like, nothing changes if nothing changes. And I knew something had to change. And so that for me was like going to therapy and being willing to invest in my mental health. Like, I don't think twice to invest in a coach or a conference or a book or a trip. And
Yeah.
so I had to be willing to apply that same ideology to therapy. And it was a game changer for me. I fought it for a couple months. Like, I'm in there, oh, I'm good. Oh, I feel a little bit, no, sit down. And so for me, therapy was the first thing that I knew that I had to do. I had to go sit down with someone that I could open up to and not be a coach for or a leader for. And I could just be vulnerable and transparent. It's a game changer for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that. I definitely feel that.
Yeah. I think for me on the healing process, Ryan, I had to be say humbled, right? You think that because when you ignore so many problems, think about this. When you've learned to ignore, not acknowledge pain, suffering, trauma, as if it's just normal in life because it's where you're from, it's how you've grown up. It's 1 out of 100 youth kids my age growing up, one house out of 100 houses in the inner city of Hallville, Indiana, had a father, and not just a man in the house. I'm saying actual father, like
1 in
biological
100.
father. 1 in 100 homes from the 80s to 95. The statistic really never changed or went any lower there. 1 out of 100 homes had an actual father. They've had stepfathers, they had boyfriend, other men in the house, but it was never actual father, right? And so when you think about those things become quote unquote normal. You don't see it, right? It wasn't until I met my wife, Amber, that I understood how to acknowledge things. And it sounds very stupid, but it's something that I love even now because it's what I do and I can care less, right? Self-care, I never heard that term, never heard that word, didn't know what it was. Me and my wife were dating, and so to make decisions easy, here's some marital counseling as well for you guys out there. To make decisions easy, we created a simple plan. My birthday's 9/12, September 12th. Her birthday's 12/9, December 9th, right? So we took my birthday, which is 9, odd number. We gave her 12, which is an even number. Whenever we go on dates, the months that are odd, I take care of. The months that are even, she takes care of, right? So we got a date that we separate each month. We have that out, and we will plan that. And her dates were always girl stuff, like, let's go get our nails done, right?
Nice.
And
Get your
I was
toes
like,
done
man,
while
don't
you're
do
at
that.
it.
I'll
You know,
go with you.
pedicures
I'll
and
pay
manicures.
I'll pay for you. So 2 or 3 times we went on this date.
Nice.
She just kept on taking me, and I refused to do it because growing up,
Yeah.
Men don't do any of that stuff, right? And I finally did it. And I tell you what, I fell asleep. I felt so comfortable and at peace that it became part of my life. And it wasn't necessarily the fact that of what it did. It was a moment for me to sit down, some relaxing music, no technology, and it was just me. When we go through trauma, we don't like just me time. We don't like alone time because we have to acknowledge things. One of the things that was both great and traumatic during the pandemic is that it forced many people to be alone. And I refused to be alone for so many years of my life because I did not want to have to acknowledge what I knew was still in the room. When you talk about not dealing with things, that spirit, that those feelings, those thoughts are still in the house until you get them out of the house or resolve it in the house and make it what it needs to be. And so for me, my healing process started with self-care. What it means to actually take time for myself, because all my life I was helping raise my two little brothers and sisters. I was helping pay bills at a young age. I was helping being caring for others. I became a pastor, and the next thing you know, I got 100, 200, 300, 500 youth students that I have to care for. Took over a church. I got 200, 300 people in my church that I have to care for. All my life was caring for others. And so the moment I got out of ministry, I had to care for myself. And some of that was force, health, right? When you don't deal with those things, you lead yourself to a hospital bed, and hopefully it doesn't happen to other people, where you have a stress attack, you have a heart attack, and you have to realize there's more important things in life. And so for me, my healing process started with understanding that self-care is healthcare for yourself. And so that moment, and my wife, I don't even think I've ever told her how much that really
That's interesting.
changed myself and my perception of life, because it was there at self-care. Then I was be able to gauge in who George was and who I really wanted to be, right? I don't want to be this tough guy that looks like he's great when really he's suffering. I want to be able to get on a call with Dr. Rousawn. I want to get on a call with my brother Ryan, and Ryan says, "George, how you doing?" And I can say, "You know what, man, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
I'm in pain."
And we have those
going through those things.
conversations, yo.
Yeah.
I mean, that's healing for me. In all of this, it looks like spending time alone, but also having someone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you had Amber, Rashawn, you had people like your wife, your kids, like being able to be self-aware in such a way that you can be aware of others. That's what's interesting. When you're not self-aware, you feel like you're aware of others, but you're not really showing up for them because you aren't showing up.
There you go.
A part of you is the part of you that's still comfortable with that trauma. So that's the thing, George, that you were talking about, which is really interesting, is a normalization of it. When it's been normalized for me, and that's how life has been, and it's expected to be that way. I how do I see it? Rashawn, you said it, perspective. How do I see another perspective when I've never been given one? So that's what's really powerful about this. A therapist gives a different perspective. A spouse can give you a different. I know I've healed so much just having conversations with my wife, with you, George. You have to spend time alone, but you also have to have people in your life that know you at your worst and still love you. You know what I'm saying? Like love you and are willing to walk through that with you. And I think that's really important, spending that time by yourself. You know, that's been for me one of the most healing things through the pandemic. The pandemic sat me down. The pandemic forced me to relook, and many of us relooked at our life and work and said, how do we go back to work and prioritize our mental health, our values, and not just work all the time. And now we're back at work and it feels like we're working all the time. But during the pandemic, it really allowed people to sit with themselves. I mean, marriages broke up because people had to spend time with each other. You know what I'm saying? It happens when you spend time with yourself. Healing happens when you spend time with yourself and when you have others that are in your life that are rooting for you, that are championing you, that are encouraging you, that are part of that process. So you're not doing it alone. You see what I'm saying? You heal when you're spending time alone, but you heal in the journey with others. I think that's a powerful idea that sometimes our thriving looks like just making a phone call to a therapist. It may not look like having a smile on your face and the mask of everything's all right and I'm powerful and I'm going to overcome and I can overcome anything and get all hyped up. But at the end of the day, we got to go back to work on Monday. We got to continue the journey. We have to continue to heal. And this is a process. And I think embracing the process of healing is something that each one of us need to do, and also know what do I need to heal, you know? And sometimes that's like, you know, a metaphor is like looking at yourself in the mirror naked. You know what I'm saying? Where you're like, your soul is open. You're like, this is who I am. This is my trauma. And facing yourself is tough to do sometimes. Looking at
Very
yourself
difficult.
eye to eye. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And dealing with it. It's not fun. It's
No,
not fun.
not at all. And man, you said so many good things there. You said, you know, sometimes it's just as small as reaching out to a person. I had a fortune cookie the other day and I opened it up. It said, great things are a result of little things. And I thought in my life, I said, man, it's like the little decisions I made, not the huge macro wins, but the little micro decisions, like calling the therapist and making an appointment. Small. It has paid huge dividends in my life, right? It wasn't a huge thing, but it's like, man, I'm struggling. Shoot a buddy a text. Bro, can we connect today? Small, but it's a huge thing. I think that's what happens when we're going through it sometimes. We look, it's like, man, I need to be all the way over there. I need to do this big thing. It's like,
yeah,
no,
fix it all at once. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, no, just one thing. What one thing can you do in this moment? Might be sending a text, might be sending an email, might be, hey, I'm gonna put my phone down and just breathe for 5 minutes. Like, I don't want to overlook that, because what you said is huge. Doing a small, like, what can you do small, not necessarily big.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. George, you got anything else, man?
I mean, for me, I think, you know, wrapping up what the process of healing, I think it's important that we state, as everybody's saying, I think all three of us, there's some things that we're saying that are similar, but I think there's some things when it comes to the healing process that are different. There's no right way or wrong way, right? It's your way and what's best for you. When it gets to the point of how do I start this journey, my answer when somebody asks me that is to start. You know, it's not to do it my way. It's to do whatever makes you feel comfortable. Do whatever gives you that, you know, sense of peace within, because there's different strategies. You know, we talk self-care. You know, for me, from self-care, I had to stay active. Physical activity. I got back into sports, got back into basketball, got back into the gym. You know, that's part of that self-care, doing stuff for me. And so when you think about what can I do to start my process, I'll name off some things that that I believe has been beneficial that are all different. Self-care, seeking support of others, finding, you know, some people, and it doesn't necessarily have to be people that's gone through what you've gone through. Those are great things to see how they made it out, but just finding somebody that you can trust and confide in is important as well. Learning relaxation, something that Ryan has really brought to me is, George, shut up. We be in the middle of a conversation and it ain't got nothing to do with self-care. It don't have anything to do with my healing process. I'm not, you know, necessarily saying, hey, I'm going through some things, but there's just that sense of energy that he said, hey, let's just take a moment, close your eyes and breathe. And I'm thinking, what's going on, bro? I remember the first time that it happened, but the first time it happened, I'm like, man, we're in the middle of a restaurant. Are you praying for us? We ain't got food. We ain't got, you just want to pray. You know,
not just breathe.
But having people in your life that can sense where you are and where you need to be to stop you in the moment, to have those moments of relaxation. Other areas that I know that helps is really, and this is what Dr. Rousawn, what I got from you today is taking control, right? Don't walk out of a situation, talk into that situation and bring yourself to that healing process and really be in that supportive space is so important. So when I think about, you know, dealing with this trauma, what are some healthy ways to start the healing process? Number one, be patient and self-compassion. Everything that you give to others, and this is what I had to do, everything that I was giving to others, I had to hit a wall and say, George, do it for you. Right. This year, 2023, I started out the year, so 2023 is for me. The last couple of years, I've been serving others. I've been serving companies. I've done, you know, all this. 2023, every decision that I make is going to have George Rogers' best interest, period. If it's not my best interest, and then it's not happening. If it's not my best interest and my son doesn't say, all right, daddy, you can do this, or you can miss this event, like whatever happens this year, 2023 is for me. And that's my declaration, and that's my promise to myself. And that's where it starts. You got to speak that to yourself, make a commitment to yourself in that process, and you can't quit. Quitting is not an option. And I'll wrap it up with this. I remember I was ready to throw in the towel prior to me actually leaving ministry. I was just ready to quit. And I remember telling myself, you know what, I'm gonna give it one more day. And that just became a habit, a daily habit in my relationships. Frustrating times, we don't say the D word, divorce word, in my marriage, because we only say it once and it's happening. Like it comes out, like that's what it's gonna, like. We can talk about struggles and we're afraid of certain things that could lead to, but the moment you say I won't, you receive. Like speaking to the atmosphere, and that was a rule. Right, because we both come from broken homes, we both come from families that were divorced, but we say, you know what, I feel like quitting, and quitting is a sign of success. You got something to quit, right? But instead of quitting, just give it one more day, and that becomes a habit to where I never give up and I never truly quit, because I'm gonna give it one more day. And so wherever you are in your mental health, and I speak to those who are out there, whether you've gone through some traumatic things, some trivial trials, some tragic trials in your life. I encourage you, if the thought of suicide, if the thought of where you are right now is mentally wearing you down and you feel like giving up, find someone, reach out to me, George@culturegood.com. I'm here for you. No matter where you are, you can email me and reach out. And I know the same is for Ryan. It's what we do, it's who we are. We care for people, and we want the best for you. And the best for you is to first start leading yourself, and caring for yourself and showing compassion.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up too, because and I want to mention, because you brought up suicide, the phone number for that, if you are contemplating, call 988. That's if you're contemplating suicide or just going through crisis, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can call them even on the holidays. Just want to mention that. And last thoughts, Rousawn. This has been really wonderful. I love your heart in terms of thriving. Any last thoughts for those that are listening?
Thank you for listening. Thank you all for having me. I'm so encouraged, and just to kind of piggyback off George, for anybody who's listening, who's going through the go through, just understand this. Take a moment and be encouraged. Like in the middle of the storm, take a moment and be encouraged. Like, what are you talking about, Rousawn? I need you to understand this. You have a 100% survival rate on bad days. Like if you're here right now and you're listening to this or you're watching this, you have survived 100% of your bad days. And so I need you to just change the way you're seeing it. Because when you change the way you see something, the thing that you see changes. Shift your perspective and understand that you're a conqueror. Like you've already won, and you will continue to do so. And that it may feel like you're losing right now, but you're actually learning. So extract the lesson and get to your next level.
Like reframe the adversity and be able to thrive in the midst of it. It's powerful stuff, man.
Yeah.
You have survived 100% of your worst days. You got this. You got this.
Yep.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. This is such an important conversation that we're going to continue to come back to from time to time, obviously on Champion Your Culture. How do people reach out to you? How do they get in touch with you? What's the best way?
My website, www.RousawnDozier.com. I'm on social media, Rousawn Dozier, Facebook, Instagram. TikTok is whack. I'm not dancing on there, but I am doing some mindset stuff. Instagram, but the best place to reach me is at my website.
Awesome. Awesome. So reach out to Rousawn if you have an upcoming event and you're looking for a keynote. I know you do some workshopping and other stuff as well, and leadership development. So you're right in line with the culture of good. So we're really grateful for you. And I know all of our audience received a whole lot from I was typing so much out. I'm like, oh, I've got to use that at some point, That's some good stuff, man.
Don't worry, y'all can borrow whatever. You all both said some things that I'm going to use, but hey, thank you all for what you do. I'm just acknowledging you for a moment. what you are doing to help people become better humans and then ultimately better professional is next level stuff. So thank you for what you're doing in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I received that. I know George does as well. Thank you
Appreciate
all
you,
for
my brother.
joining us today on Champion Your Culture. George, you want to finish things off here?
Hey, thank you for joining us. As always, remember July 11th and 12th. As a reminder, July 11th and 12th, we have our Champion Your Culture special packet coming up with, I done butchered all that. We have our 2-day training to become a culture champion. I'm up here sponsoring the podcast with our 2-day training. 2-day training where you're going to come and get empowered with some leadership development, taking culture back to your workplace. Ryan and I will be there hands-on. What you're going to get in these 2 days has increased 44% increase of recruiting for organizations. 82% of employees have been retained. 93 have been sustained. And so there's some work within what we're going to be doing in this 2-day. And I know that you're going to leave inspired. You're going to have some positive change and really go back to your workplace, and it's going to impact your bottom line as well.
Yep, this stuff works. So we're excited to see you July 11th and 12th. And as always, thank you for joining us on Champion Your Culture. See you next week. Hi, friends. Thanks for joining us on Champion Your Culture podcast today.
We're so excited that you're here and want to invite you to connect with us. You can watch the show weekly on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or LinkedIn, and listen anywhere you get podcasts.
Subscribe today to get new relevant content each week on how to champion yourself and your team. Thanks again for listening to Champion Your Culture.